I was wrong. They weren't able to rig this one. I'm delighted at the result yesterday. And not just for Irish women, but for all of the people in Ireland who've watched this government run the country into the ground with their nonsense. You know, this morning, all over Ireland, there'll be politicians waking up and realising that yesterday was the beginning of the end for them. Is the beginning of the end for their spin, for their lies, for their behaviour, for the way that they treat the Irish people. You know, you have to remember that all of these things that are being done in our name are being paid for by us, including Micheál Martin's wages, including Leo Varadkar's wages, Mary Lou McDonald's wages. These people work for us, and they've forgotten that a long time ago, and they lord it over us like they have a divine right to be in power. They were put there and they will be removed. You know, yesterday was a turning point, not just for everybody, not just for the country, but it showed finally that people in Ireland will not be forced and bullied into ridiculous notions just to suit the EU agenda. I don't know how much money is pumped into these people that they can behave in such a way and that they would jeopardize their own children's safety. You know, we have an immigration crisis, and it is a crisis, and they are just adding fuel to the fire, and without a care or thought for their own children and for their own neighbours and for their own sisters and mothers. I mean, you know, yesterday was the beginning of the end for these cowboys. And, you know, you look at Micheál Martin and Leo Varadkar and the obnoxious manner in which they carry themselves, and they look at people like me and you and they say, oh, chancers. Well, we know who the chancers are today. And it didn't work out well for you, and it won't work out well for you in the future. We want rid of this government, and we want rid of the old boys club, which means that every party, regardless of the colours that they pin to their flag, they all stand for the same thing. Globalism, European rights over the rights of our people, and that is not going to continue anymore. It's over. It's over, and they will be waking up this morning, and there will be tears, and there'll be all sorts of nonsense about a low turnout. No, this was about Irish people finally understanding that they do have power, that they can change this disastrous course which this government and these parties have put us on. You know, one of the things I would like to say is this: to all of the political establishment, you don't own language. Language is not yours to choose what to do with. You can't use words, force people to use words they don't want to use. You don't own language. It's not for you to tell someone that this is how you have to speak to somebody. You must address them by their chosen pronouns. Who the hell are you? And who gave you the right to reign over the Irish people and dictate as if you own the English language? No, you don't. So give up with this nonsense about trying to figure out how to get us not to say what we want to say. We will say it, and we are saying it. And yesterday, I think you heard it. You didn't want to hear it, but you did hear it. You know, we're at saturation point in Ireland, and nobody in the political establishment has ever once uttered these words: prioritise Irish people for houses, for services, for mental health care. You know, we have the highest suicide rate in Europe for 12 years now running. The highest suicide rate in Europe. And why do you think that is? It's because we're forcing young people. We tell them this. It starts at school when the teacher says, what do you want to be when you grow up? Take your pick. What job do you want to do for the government is the real question. And then they put these children into classrooms with artificial lighting. They tell them to sit still. As children, sit still. And then they fill their head with nonsense about history, which is just a version of events written by the winner anyway. Algebra. Like, what use are these skills in the real world? They're not. Teach them about money. Teach them the truth about taxes. Show them where your money is being spent. But no, instead, they restrict them as almost like in an experimental lab. And then they expect these kids to grow up to be balanced and to understand how their government works, to understand the real truth about history. And yet, again and again and again, they can't do that because they're human beings. And human beings were not meant to be kept in those conditions. The children should be in the fields playing. Sure, give them a couple of hours of homework, but the Irish political establishment, along with many, many, many other countries, has for years done simply the groundwork for slaves. You know, I grew up hearing about black people being slaves, and you know what? At least they knew they were slaves. They had chains around their ankles. Now slaves wear three-piece suits and drive nice cars, but they're still slaves. They work for the government. The government takes half of the money that they earn. They don't tell them what they're doing with the money. They take half of the money that they earn, and then when they spend the remainder of the money, they get taxed again. So this scam, and it is a scam, it is a racket, and it has to stop, because governments are there to do what people want them to. We've moved to a place where it's almost inconceivable that the people should have a voice, and that the people should have rights, and that they should be able to say who lives in their neighborhood. Funny enough, Leo Varadkar came out and said, nobody gets to choose who lives in their neighborhood. But he does. So what does that make him? An emperor? A dictator? No, I'll tell you who the chances are. The chances are all of the major political parties, including the Greens, all of these idiots who think railroading all of us into a European superstate and all the dangers that that poses, not just for the country, but for our customs, for our traditions, and they think they're going to get away with it. Well, they're not going to get away with it. And yesterday was the beginning of the end for that nonsense, and that's exactly what it is. You know, they look at you like you haven't got a brain cell in your head, and they expect you to roll over and do what you're told. Well, they didn't get that result yesterday, and they certainly won't be getting it in the future. And I'm delighted, I'm absolutely delighted to see people finally waking up to say, well, it reminds me of the old Janet Jackson song. When you look at the government and you say, well, what have you done for me lately? Have you listened to me? Have you listened to anybody? Or have you just decided, hot step from Brussels, here's what the next agenda is? And by the way, while we're on the subject of Brussels, I would like people to do a little bit of research and look up a gentleman by the name of Mr. Klaus Schwab. This guy is the architect of what Ireland is going through at the moment, and many, many other European countries. And remember, Mr. Schwab has a Young World Forum's leader school. And all of the people that you will find have been through that indoctrination, I suppose is the best word for it, include Macron, Varadkar, Trudeau in Canada. And he says himself, Mr. Schwab says, we infiltrate the cabinets. Excuse me? You infiltrate a democratically elected cabinet? What the hell are you talking about? And then he steps aside to give a special word of praise for Leo Varadkar. What? You are praising the supposed leader of a European country. What do you have to be thankful to him for? Yesterday was an example of one of the reasons Mr. Schwab would have been very, very happy with Leo. You know, the pieces are falling into place here. If Klaus Schwab is telling the truth, then he has infiltrated the cabinets all around the world. Now, how do you do that? Do you twist their arms behind their back? Do you secretly give them money? How do you guarantee that they will follow what you want? Klaus Schwab, by the way, has never had a single vote from anybody in his life. And we're now at a situation where this guy, he wrote a book called The Fourth Industrial Revolution. You really should check it out, because this guy is a lunatic. And unfortunately, anybody carrying out the wishes and the will of a lunatic must have a few bob missing in their pocket. Because at the end of the day, Klaus Schwab is not the leader of Ireland. In fact, the leader of Ireland, the real leader of Ireland, is the European Union. And we've lost our country. I see when I see the Dáil, a beautiful building with the tricolour above it, and it makes me so sad, because I think, why the hell don't you just pull that thing down and stick up your European flag? Because that's who's really in power now in this country. And to all the people who came out over the last few weeks, all of the fantastic videos, all of the women, all of the men that came and said, no, 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 no. You know, they deserve not just a clap on the back, but they deserve a round of applause, because without them, we could be looking at a very different world this morning. So let's pick it up from here. Let's take the ball home with us, and let's make sure that you do speak up, that you stop waiting for other people to speak up. Get yourself a TikTok. You know, awareness is what caused the result yesterday. Years ago, we wouldn't have been able to do that, because RTE in all its wonder wouldn't have allowed us any opinion other than that is fed to them by the government. They're a propaganda machine, and Channel Virgin Media are no better. They're all in the pocket of big business and corporate business. So remember that. And again, as of yesterday, the Irish political establishment, it's over, boys.